Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be diving into something pretty interesting. I think we're going to be looking at the story of New Coke.
Ah, New Coke.
Yeah.
The infamous marketing blunder of the century, perhaps.
Some people say it's a blunder. Some people say it was actually kind of a stroke of genius a little bit.
An accidental stroke of genius.
Yeah. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of that today. And we've got some great sources here. We've got an article from Unilad.
Okay.
And then an article from the Coca Cola company itself.
Oh, wow. So we're getting it straight from the horse's mouth.
Straight from the horse's mouth. And then, of course, we've got some social media commentary from Reddit.
Oh, excellent.
Where, people are still very passionate about this subject to this day.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Coca Cola.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much more iconic.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's really fascinating how people are still so passionate about it. So that's what we're going to dive into today. And we're going to kind of look at, what was the reasoning behind this decision?
Yeah, why change a winning formula?
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But they felt the need to fix something, obviously, so we're going to look into that. And then, of course, what was the reaction from the public? How did they handle it? And then ultimately, we'll kind of look at, what was the impact? Was it truly a $34 million blunder, or was it some sort of like a genius marketing ploy that actually worked?
Yeah, it's fascinating how it seems to be held up as like the ultimate example of like a branding failure, and yet it seems like they came out of it.
Yeah. They survived and thrived even so. Yeah, so to set the scene a little bit, Coca-Cola's been around since what, 1886?
1886, that's right.
I mean, that's crazy. It's like over 100 years. That's a long time, and they've been the kind of the dominant force in the soft drink market all that time with their iconic red branding. And that very distinctive taste that everybody knows and loves. And that's been kind of like a key element of their success, all these years. But it's interesting because by the early 1980s, they were actually facing a challenge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had seen like 15 years of declining market share.
Oh, wow.
So
it's interesting. So even though they had this iconic brand recognition and all that,
still things were not going their way.
Things were changing, yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with like the rise of diet sodas.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And, other kind of non-cola beverages were starting to come out and get popular, and people were starting to kind of like maybe look for alternatives. And so this is where Pepsi starts to come into the picture, because Pepsi really started to kind of like, become a real threat to Coca-Cola. At this point, they were appealing to a younger generation.
Right.
With kind of like a sweeter flavor profile, which we're going to talk about in a second because that's really important to this whole story.
Yeah.
So Coca-Cola executives, they see this happening. They see their market share declining. They see the rise of these alternative beverages, and they say, we've got to do something about this. We've got to revitalize the brand. We've got to regain that market share that we've been losing.
Yeah.
And so they make this kind of like bold decision.
What do they do?
Well, they decided to change the formula.
What?
I know, it's crazy. They're going to change the Coca-Cola formula, which hadn't been changed in 99 years.
Wow. Okay.
And this is where it gets crazy. They do all this expensive market research.
Right.
They do over 200,000 taste tests.
200,000?
200,000 people they put this new formula in front of.
Wow.
And the data suggests that people prefer a sweeter taste.
Okay.
Which is more aligned with Pepsi's flavor profile.
Wow.
So they're essentially saying, okay, we're losing market share to Pepsi. People seem to like this sweeter taste.
Right.
Let's try to make our drink taste a little more like Pepsi.
So they're trying to beat Pepsi at their own game.
Yeah, they're trying to beat Pepsi at their own game.
Wow. That's a bold move.
Very bold move. And it was described as like the biggest risk in consumer goods history.
Wow.
To change this 99-year-old formula. So April 23, 1985, this is the day that goes down in history.
This is it. This is D-Day.
New Coke hits the shelves.
All right.
And all hell breaks loose.
Oh, no.
The public outcry is immediate. And it's intense. It's far beyond anything that Coca-Cola could have ever imagined.
So they were not expecting this level of pushback.
Nope. Not even close. They thought they had done their due diligence. They had done their market research.
Yeah.
They thought they knew what people wanted.
Yeah.
And they were dead wrong.
And they were so wrong.
Yeah. The articles talk about people like protesting in the streets.
Right.
They're demanding that they bring back the old Coke boycott.
Wow. So this is like a
It's crazy.
A cultural phenomenon.
It's a cultural phenomenon. People are holding Coca-Cola employees personally responsible for this change.
Like they see them out on the street and they're like, hey, what did you do?
Yeah, what have you done?
Yeah.
There's a story about a guy named Gabe Mullins.
Okay.
Who became kind of like a folk hero in a way for the Bring Back Coke movement. He actually spent $30,000 of his own money to advocate for the return of the original recipe.
Goodness gracious.
He was not happy about this change.
$30,000. That's commitment right there.
And this was back in 1985, so that's like $80,000 in today's money.
Wow. Yeah, he was serious.
Yeah, and he would go around and give interviews, and he was quoted as saying that this is un-American.
Oh, wow.
It was like a blow to like our freedom of choice or something.
Wow. So it wasn't just about the soda anymore. It was about...
It became like a principle.
Yeah.
It became a statement. You know, and the Reddit comments that we found are very interesting, too. A lot of people saying that they described New Coke as being way too sweet.
Okay.
Syrupy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, very ironically, a lot of people were saying it tastes just like Pepsi.
Ooh.
I know.
That's hilarious.
It's so funny because that's kind of what they were going for.
That's exactly what they were going for.
But it backfired.
It backfired spectacularly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they did the research.
Right.
It seemed like the data supported it, but they failed to capture like the emotional connection that people had with that original formula.
Yeah, you can't quantify nostalgia. You can't quantify that kind of like emotional attachment that people have.
Yeah, it was more than just a drink to people.
Right.
So Coca-Cola had a problem on their hands.
A big one.
So Coca-Cola, they've got this like PR nightmare on their hands.
Yeah, what do you do when you've basically, you know, angered an entire nation of Coca-Cola lovers?
Yeah, you've got to do something drastic.
Yeah.
And they actually ended up bringing back the original formula.
So they just admitted defeat?
Yeah. Only 79 days after launching New Coke, they announced the return of the original formula, and they rebranded it as Coca-Cola Classic.
Coca-Cola Classic.
Which we all know and love to this day.
I mean, it's kind of brilliant when you think about it.
It is kind of brilliant, yeah.
Kind of like how we messed up.
Yeah.
Here's the classic.
Here's the OG.
That's the OG, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, that's a pretty quick turnaround for a company like Coca-Cola.
Less than 3 months, they're like, yeah, okay, we messed up.
Yeah. It's pretty humbling for a brand that big to just kind of like admit defeat like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows you that they were listening to their customers.
Yeah.
They understood that they had made a mistake.
Yeah. And in their own words, they admitted that they, you know, they changed the dynamics of the cola market.
Right.
But not in the way that they had planned.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about the financial fallout of this, because obviously they wasted a lot of money on this whole New Coke experiment.
How much are we talking
We're
about?
talking $30 million
Good.
in wasted New Coke concentrate.
30 million, that's a lot of concentrate.
That's a lot of concentrate. I read somewhere that that's enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Really?
With New Coke concentrate.
Wow, that's a visual I did not need.
I know, it's a lot of New Coke.
Wow.
Plus, they spent another $4 million on all the market research and the taste tests.
Right.
So, all in all...
So, cool $34 million.
$34 million blunder.
But you know what they say? You can't put a price on a learning experience.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, that is a pretty expensive lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But like you said, for a company as big as Coca-Cola, $34 million.
It's a drop in the bucket.
It's a drop in the bucket. Yeah, they can survive that. But still, you know, it's a significant hit.
Yeah.
And it definitely, you know, bruised their ego a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, you know, a lot of people look at this and they say, okay, this is the, you know, the classic example of a marketing failure.
Textbook case.
You know, massive public backlash.
Right.
They had to, like, you know, very quickly kind of retreat and bring back the original product, and then they're out, you know, millions of dollars.
Yeah, seems like a failure.
Seems like a failure, right? But here's where things get a little bit interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What if this so-called failure was actually a success?
What?
I know it sounds crazy, right?
How could that be?
Think about it. Their goal was to revitalize the brand.
Right.
And to regain that market share that they were losing to Pepsi.
Okay.
And in a weird way, it seems like they actually achieved that.
What do you mean?
Well, within 6 months of New Coke's launch, Coca-Cola sales had doubled the growth rate of Pepsi.
Really?
And by the end of 1985, Coca-Cola Classic was outselling both New Coke
wow.
and Pepsi.
So it's almost like all the press around this new Coke, all
Yeah.
the controversy actually reminded people how much they love the original.
Yeah, it's like they had to lose it to
Yeah.
appreciate it.
To appreciate.
You know, it's like absence makes the heart grow fonder or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so they brought back the original. Everybody flocked back to it.
Yeah.
And they ended up on top.
And so they won. I mean, it's like the old adage, any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a case of like, turning lemons into lemonade.
Exactly. Yeah.
They took this PR nightmare
Yeah.
and they somehow managed to spin it into a victory.
A marketing victory.
Yeah, and some people argue that, maybe this was all part of the plan.
With conspiracy.
Maybe this was a brilliant...
A long con.
Yeah, a long con, an accidental stroke of genius.
That's an interesting theory.
It's fun to think about.
It is.
So, New Coke obviously didn't last.
Right.
But it didn't just disappear overnight.
Really.
It actually continued to be sold for another 17 years.
Get out of here.
I know.
17 years.
They even renamed it Coke 2 in 1990.
Coke 2. I've never even heard of that.
I know. It's like this weird little footnote in history.
That's so funny.
But yeah, they tried to rebrand it.
Okay.
Give it a fresh start.
Okay.
But it just never really took off.
Yeah, it couldn't escape its past.
Yeah.
The legacy of New Coke.
The ghost of New Coke passed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was eventually discontinued in 2002.
Yeah.
So it's gone, but not forgotten.
Well, I mean, it lives on in infamy, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to try it, you can probably still find some on eBay or something.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's become kind of a collector's item.
Oh, wow. So people are actually buying it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain novelty to it, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a little piece of history.
Yeah, like a relic from a bygone era.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Speaking of relics, I was reading that in 2020. They actually had like a Stranger Things promotional pack.
Oh, really?
That included new Coke cans.
Wow. Piggybacking on the 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly.
That's smart.
And they were selling for like $40 on Amazon.
Really?
So clearly there's still some interest in this.
Yeah, there's a market for everything, I guess.
There's a market for everything, yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so we've talked about the rise and fall of New Coke. The backlash, the comeback of Coca Cola Classic, and even this like weird sort of fascination that people still have with it. But I think this whole story, it kind of it brings up some bigger questions, I think.
Yeah, I mean it definitely goes beyond just the fate of a single product.
Well,
this whole saga really kind of shows us the complicated relationship between brands and consumers,
Yeah, and how powerful nostalgia can be, like it's not just about the taste, it's about the memories and the emotions that people attach to these products and these brands.
It's about that feeling you get when you take that first sip.
Yeah.
It's like taking you back to your childhood or something.
Exactly. Yeah, and Coca-Cola really underestimated that, they were so focused on the data and the market research that they forgot about the human element, they forgot about the heart.
Yeah, and they paid the price for it.
They did. But it's interesting to think about, what would happen if something like this happened today.
Oh, yeah, like in the age of social media?
Yeah, could you imagine?
Oh, it would be a complete meltdown.
Yeah, I mean, the tweets, the memes, the TikToks, it'd be crazy.
Yeah, the internet would explode.
Yeah, would people be even more outraged?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the people are so quick to share their opinions online, and there's this whole culture of outrage and, cancel culture and all that.
Yeah. Would we see like a mass boycott?
Oh, for sure? Yeah.
Would people be like pouring new Coke down the drain on TikTok or something?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah. It's a whole different world now.
It is. But I wonder, on the flip side of that, are brand loyalties kind of more fleeting these days? Like are people just so used to, new products and new trends coming and going all the time that they wouldn't really care as much?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's definitely a lot more choice now than there was back in the 80s,
Right.
Like you walk down the soda aisle at the grocery store, and it's overwhelming. There's like a million different options.
Yeah, and everything's constantly changing,
Right.
So maybe people are just kind of numb to it at this point.
Maybe. Yeah, it's hard to say.
It is. But I think the new Coke story, it reminds us that even in today's world, where everything's so fast-paced and kind of disposable, that there's still this deep-seated desire for authenticity,
right?
For connection, for those things that kind of stand the test of time.
Yeah, like there's a reason why Coca Cola Classic is still so popular.
Yeah.
It's because it represents something. It's more than just a drink.
Yeah, it's a feeling, it's a memory, it's
Yeah.
a taste of the past.
Yeah. And people crave that.
Yeah. So what do you guys think out there? Did you live through the New Coke saga? Did you ever try New Coke? What were your thoughts on it? Share your stories with us. Let us know, because this is a story that I think really kind of resonates with people even to this day.
It does. Yeah. It's a fascinating look at the power of brands and how they can kind of shape our culture and our memories.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that even the biggest brands can make mistakes,
Oh, yeah.
but sometimes those mistakes can lead to unexpected successes.
Right.
And they can teach us valuable lessons.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next time you're sipping on a Coca Cola Classic,
Yeah.
think about all the history and all the drama
Yeah.
that went into making that drink what it is today.
Yeah, it's more than just a soda. It's a story.
It's a story. Yeah. And it's a story that continues to be told.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of New Coke.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.